Man, do I have a lot to share with you guys today. Stay tuned. Hey sitters, welcome back to another video. It is Lydia. Thanks for joining me once again. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any awesome tips and tricks on how to become a better babysitter. Today we are going to be talking about events, overnights, and travels with families that we work for. And I have some stories to tell you, definitely from my experience. I have done all three, traveling, events, overnights, with different families that I've worked for. And I just want to share my experience with you guys, so make sure you stick all the way to the end to hear all the stories and make sure that you get all the tips that you can from this, so maybe you could start opening up that possibility with you and families that you work for. So this first experience that I'm going to talk about is actually an overnight that I did for a family. The parents went on a trip and I stayed home and watched the 4 kids. And it was an extended period of time. I did it for 5 days, so in a row, consistently. So I started on a Monday, I was done by Saturday midday, but it was one of the more hectic experiences that I've had with doing something like that. My duties include basically everything mom and dad did, but now that they're not there, I'm doing. So pickups and drop-offs, breakfast, lunch, and dinners. The 4 kids, the age ranged from pre-K to high school. So each of them had a different drop-off time and each of them had a different pickup time. They were all in different types of after-school activities, just entertaining in general, making sure the house is picked up. The cleaners were there one day, so I had to make sure that they were let in. They also had a dog, so I had to make sure that the dog was let out consistently. So the job entailed a lot. Now, I learned a lot from that experience. It wasn't my first time doing something like that, but it was definitely one of my major learning experiences that I did. We talked money in the beginning before we even started. I started the job before they even left. Mind you, they have no family around. They had just recently moved to the area, so I was on call if anything were to happen. There was no family backup. There was no, I think there may have been one person I could have called, but they weren't related in any way, and they didn't know the kids that well. Again, they had just moved. So we talked money, we talked a little bit of what the week would look like, where I should be at what time, picking up who, dropping off who. That's the stuff that we talked about, details of what the week entailed. We did not talk expectations though, but we did talk money. So when we were talking, the kids were in school from 8 to 4, and I had said basically that I needed to be paid for that time because I'm on call. If something happens to the kids, I'm the one that has to go get them. So I cannot get another job between 8 and 4, so I should be being paid for that time. And she fought back with me on it. She told me that that's ridiculous, that nothing's going to happen, there's no need for that. She even mentioned taking me off call and just hiring somebody else, which if you're going to hire somebody else, you might as well just pay me. But it ended up, something did happen. So back when I took the job, the COVID policy for the school was a little more strict. If anybody had been exposed to COVID in this classroom, the whole classroom had to quarantine. So her child's classroom had to quarantine. So I did end up having him for 2 full days that from the 8 to 4 for 2 days that I wasn't technically supposed to have him. It ended up I didn't get compensated for that in the end. I wasn't paid for the time that I had him. So I learned that we need to talk about what ifs before taking a job. What if something does go down? What if this happens? What if this happens? You guys need to, and I need to, and I learned this, make sure that you talk about all possibilities because that'll cover you and that'll make sure that you know what to expect when things go kind of off track, which is okay, but you do need to explain that there are things that could go wrong, there are things that could happen, and we got to prepare for them. My next experience is a travel experience. I traveled with a family. So every year, a lot of people around where I live go scalloping. We drive north and we go in the Gulf to go scalloping. It's a lot of fun. The trip is so relaxing. It's an every year trip that we do. It's just a lot of people around here do it. So one of my families contacted me and asked me if I was willing to go and watch their children while they went scalloping. And I was all for it. Now this family, I really love this family. They take care of me very well. They're very transparent with a lot of things. They accept and listen to whatever I have to say. I was like, yeah, I am all for this. Let's talk things through. Let's see what you need, what I need, and then we can make this work. It ended up being that I needed an extra person to go with me. We were working with 3 infants and 3 toddlers, and if you could imagine, that is a handful, so I needed some help. So we had talked about first traveling, so how I'm going to get there, how I'm getting back. We talked about if I'm sharing a room with the kids. We talked expectations, really, not to the full extent, but enough to where I was comfortable. Again, this is a family that I'm very comfortable with. Things got a little like off track. Again, this happens. Things are not going to be perfect and you need to be flexible. They're supposed to fly me out there and boat me back. We were supposed to come back on the boat. The day comes, I don't know if you guys know, my dad is a private pilot. He loves flying, so he was gonna fly me and my friend out there, and we were supposed to boat back with the family because they had already been out there. So the morning comes, my dad is not able to fly because of fog, and we have to kind of change our plans on how we were going to get there. So I was like, don't worry about it. It's a 2-hour drive. I'm not worried about it. I can drive, not a big deal. It was a lot of fun. Me and my friend ended up sharing a room. We didn't need to share a room with the kids. However, we were in the same house as everybody. We were renting a house, or they were renting a house, not me. And they were in the house with the kids. Now, when you talk about expectations with families, a big one is about accommodations. And whether or not, I already knew I wasn't sharing a room, but was it expected of me to get up with the kids in the middle of the night if they needed something? Again, there were 3 infants and 3 toddlers. Again, people are getting up all the time. So trying to understand, like, okay, who is to get up? Am I supposed to get up? Am I going to get paid for that time? Or are they getting paid for that time? Or not paid? Are they getting up with their kids at night? Ends up being that I don't need to get up with the kids at night. I just am expected to get up in the morning with the kids, start their breakfast, get the day rolling, get them dressed, which is fine. I was able to do. Some of the toddlers actually went out on the boat with the families, but most of the kids stayed at the house with me and my friend. Now, again, we didn't really talk much expectation. We were ready to go with the flow. So we ended up staying at the house most of the time, entertaining, getting lunch done and naps in, so that in the afternoon the families could do dinner with the kids or whatever they needed to do. This experience really taught me a lot about my way of interacting with families on a job versus, like, this was not a vacation for me. Going in, I thought, great, we're going to be out on a boat in the sun. It's going to be so much fun. This trip really showed me that when you go travel with a family, you are going on their vacation. You are working their vacation. You're not going on vacation. Because in this, I needed to, like, I didn't get to go scalloping, which was fine. I didn't get to go to lunch with them out on the boat. There was a lot of things I didn't do because I was working. I was being hired to handle the kids while they went and did that stuff. So when you go on a vacation with the families you're working for, you're working. That is a working gig. You are not on vacation yourself. Now, some will say, when you go on a travel vacation with a family, you guys talk hours, which means you talk about, okay, am I on from 9 to 5, and after 5 I get to go sit by the pool or go do activities that I want to go do. That's on you and the family to talk hours. We didn't talk hours. We didn't talk about my on hours versus off hours. I was pretty much on all day until I went to bed, and then I got up really early. So yeah, there was a lot of learning experiences in that, but not as much as that first story I told you. And they paid me really well. They paid me and my friend very well. So this next experience is a wedding weekend, overnight kind of thing. It was a combination of the both. The wedding was on a Saturday. I went in to the house Saturday morning around 10:30. I let the grandparents go because they needed to go get ready for the wedding themselves. I was going to see them later. But I fed the kids lunch and I put them down for a nap before we even went to the wedding venue, because I was working with 2 one-year-olds and 1 4-year-old, and if you know anything about that age, they need their naps. They need some sleep. Once they got up from their naps, I had to make sure that I had all the diaper bags, all the wedding stuff. I grabbed everything that I needed, and I had to shuffle them into the car. Now, if you were there, you would have been laughing. I'm pretty sure the neighbors were peeking through the windows to watch this whole ordeal because it was a mess. I was driving their car. I had to get everybody into their car seats and buckled in. I had to make sure I had all the bags. The car was locked. I was told the car keys were inside the car. How do you get in a car if the car is locked and the car keys are inside? There was a code on the outside. It was a big ordeal. I ended up having all the kids sit on the sidewalk. The car was also parked on the street, so that doesn't really help either. So I had all the kids sit on the sidewalk. I was running around like a chicken with my head cut off because I was so nervous that the kids were going to get up or get into the street. I ended up getting it all figured out. I worked it out. I did it. I was expected to park in the parking garage and go up and meet them in the room. Now they were already getting ready, getting their hair and makeup done. Both parents were in the wedding. All 3 kids were in the wedding as well, and in pictures. So it was a hectic day. I ended up getting there. Our city had a city event going on, so the parking garage was actually closed, so I couldn't get in. And this is where you have to be flexible and think on your feet. So I just valeted the car. I guess it wasn't that quick thinking on my feet. But that was an expense that they weren't expecting to pay, but I didn't have a choice, or else I wasn't getting there. And we were also running just a tad bit late. After dropping off the little girl to the bridal party, I ended up going, because she was a flower girl, and getting dressed and her hair and her makeup done. I went to a room with the 2 one-year-olds, and I ended up sitting in the room for about an hour and a half to 2 hours with nothing to do with 2 one-year-olds. And if you know anything about that age, it is hard to entertain when you got nothing. I should have gotten an itinerary. That's your first tip. Make sure you know what's going on, because I sat in the room for about an hour and a half with nothing to do with 2 one-year-olds because I didn't realize. We thought that the flow of the day was going to continue flowing, and I wasn't going to sit with anybody for a little bit. That was not the case. So to get an itinerary of what's going to happen when can also help you better prepare. I could have brought my babysitting bag. I could have planned activities for these kids, but you got to be flexible. So getting an idea of what the day looks like or getting an itinerary for the day helps a lot. Now also what you can do is, I didn't go to the rehearsal dinner, which means I don't know what the wedding ceremony is supposed to look like for the kids. If the kids are in the wedding, if you could go to the wedding rehearsal, you don't have to go to the dinner. They don't have to feed you anything. You just need to go and understand where the kids are supposed to be walking or what they're supposed to be doing or where they're supposed to be standing. So you get an idea of, if things go wrong, you know that things are going wrong. Like, I didn't know if the kids were supposed to stand, like where they were supposed to, I don't know. It was bad. I should have gone to the rehearsal dinner, or the rehearsal, yeah, not the dinner, the rehearsal, what is it called? The rehearsal of the ceremony. I should have known what was going on, and I really didn't. So getting an itinerary would work really well. Now the plan was I was supposed to go upstairs, get everybody undressed for dinner, and redressed for the ceremony. So I thought I had 45 minutes to do that. I packed dinner, I packed PB&J. Great idea, right? Wrong. That was not a good idea on my end. So I got everybody undressed. I had them all eat their dinner, and then I got everybody redressed. In the middle of me getting kids redressed, I got a phone call of, hey, this is where you're supposed to have the kids. And I was like, oh, okay, in 10, 15 minutes? And they were like, no, as soon as possible. So now I'm rushing because I think I'm being late, or I'm running late. And I get everybody dressed. I'm also supposed to get myself dressed because not only am I working a wedding, but I'm attending a wedding. So I get myself dressed, I get my heels on, I do my hair, and I get everybody out. And we are walking through the hotel to go to where they're supposed to be for the wedding. And that just happened to be, we had to go through a crowd of people who were attending the wedding, who haven't seen the kids in a while, who were trying to stop us and say hello, and I was really getting overwhelmed. It's funny now that I look back at it, that the kids were walking very slow. One of the kids doesn't like going up and down the stairs. It was a mess. But I finally got them to where they needed to go. The wedding went so smooth. The kids were great. Nobody cried. They did a wonderful job. They were very cute. Pictures were being taken of them in the wedding ceremony. And then that's when I was to come in and pick them up and just have them come sit with me while the rest of the wedding continued. So it went perfectly. I couldn't have asked for it to be any better than it went. But as soon as we got up, we were invited to the happy hour for a little bit to mingle and let people see the kids. Well, I was in charge of 3 kids, and I only had 1 by the time I got to happy hour because family and friends like to scoop up kids and hold them and walk with them. And I was very nervous that the parents were going to be upset. So that's another thing to talk about with them. If you are going to attend the after party, if you're going to attend the reception, if you're going to attend anywhere where there is a big crowd of people that haven't seen the kids in a while, talk to them about what expectations are. I could have asked, is this okay that the kids are bounced around from person to person? Do you want me to put my foot down and say, nope, the parents have asked me to keep them in this corner. If you'd like to come mingle with them, you can come to us. Of course, you can say hello and hug and kiss on them, but they have to stay in my line of sight. So I could have talked to the family about that beforehand, and I ended up not. So that was my mistake, and I learned for next time. So that was a big thing as well, just making sure that I could see everybody and I knew where all the kids were at one time. I ended up coming home with the kids, did an overnight with them. I didn't sleep much. The kids slept great. One of the kids had a cough, so he was up like every 3-4 hours. But I didn't sleep much. Kids did great. The next day was actually Easter, so I also have to get everybody cleaned up and dressed for Easter because they were having a brunch held at their house. But by the time I got off was around 11:30. I came home and I crashed. I fell asleep. I was dehydrated. I also had a sinus infection the whole time, so that adds to the stress and the excitement of the 25 hours I worked. I also want to talk to you guys about appropriate behavior and clothing. So at this wedding I attended, I made sure that I was dressed to where if I bent over and had to get down on the ground with the kids, I wasn't flashing anybody. I ended up wearing a jumper that covered my top and obviously covered my bottom, but it was perfect when I was bending over in front of everybody to pick up these kids at the wedding ceremony. There was nothing I was showing or or doing that could possibly be inappropriate while at work, because I have to remember I'm at work. Also on travel, when you're talking about your time, your hours to yourself, when you say you get off at 5 and you're allowed to explore and do whatever, it's not your vacation. Like I said earlier, you have to remember that. So you get to go explore, but the families don't want to see you at the bar or just drinking to where you're not remembering or blacking out, or that you're in clothing that you would be comfortable in around friends and family, like skimpier clothing or skimpier bathing suits. I do have certain bathing suits that I wear around families that I work with, and then I have bathing suits that I wear when I'm with my family and friends. But making sure that you are appropriate at all times during this vacation, even though you may be on your time, like you may be on your off hours where you can explore and stuff. 3 big things you need to remember. Things are not going to be perfect. Things will go wrong, but you need to be flexible and patient if that does happen, if that does occur. And you need to think fast on your feet if things are going awry. If you guys have any experience with travel, events, or overnights, please let me know down in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you've been through, what you've learned through it. And if you haven't, this is a great way to learn and get started if you'd want to. If you guys have any questions, please let me know down in the comment section below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.